I don't come back to the games I mentioned in previous videos. It naturally means that I can't see how my stance on the way a game changes or doesn't change for my time playing it because, well, I need to jump to the next game on my docket and make sure that y'all always have a new video up in a consistent manner, which is what makes this video a first. I initially checked out Jusant when I was doing my video on the Steam Next Fest a few weeks back, and I was thoroughly impressed with what I played. To the point where I said I would actively come back to and talk about it when it came out, and that's what we're doing this time. It's been a few weeks since then, so let's embark and see what's good about Jusant. For those who didn't watch my video on the fall Steam Next Fest, why didn't you? That video was really good. I am betrayed. Jusant is a puzzle platformer developed and self-published by Dontnod of Life is Strange fame. As I mentioned in that initial first impressions, Jusant is a decided departure from Dontnod's usual style. They focus more on cinematic Telltale style experiences, where most of the action plays out in cutscenes with choices of what dialogue is spoken of the controlled character and QuickTime events that simulate specific actions and interact with the environment making up the gameplay. You know the type. Their style of writing on Life is Strange is decidedly not for me, and that's fine, which is what makes the style change to Jusant all the more interesting to me. You play as a lone climber, accompanied by a weirdly adorable blue creature that rests in your backpack, with most of the narrative doled out through the environments themselves, and notes of former inhabitants in the area you're in, and there are even extra context clues and collectibles that add to the story. It's a decidedly more show, don't tell approach, and Dontnod pulls it off here. They tell an interesting background story of several individuals trying to make expeditions to get higher up in the tower/mountain where the game takes place. And this is also shown in the personal story of a young woman named Bianca, who joins one of these expeditions for her own reasons. It all adds depth to a world that is otherwise empty in stark contrast. The best example of this is where you pick up these seashells and can use them to both hear what I'm assuming is a long-forgotten ocean and the sounds of the area you're currently in, painting a picture of how full of life this place used to be. This is also showcased in the environments you go to. While all of these have their own distinct times of day and geographical features, the overarching theme for Jusant's locales is to evoke something of a pillar of coral. This implies that this takes place in a world where the oceans are all dried up and the various canyons and mountains you find yourself climbing are in actuality former deep-sea trenches and dead Great Barrier Reefs. I'm not entirely sure that's true, but Jusant doesn't dissuade me from thinking this either. It's one of those things that's left to interpretation, and it works because whatever the actual answer is, it's probably not going to be anywhere near as interesting as what we can come up with. But that's just with the narrative and thematics. There's also a video game in here. As I mentioned in the Next Fest video, Jusant is a puzzle platformer game where the main mechanical challenge is to simply climb up the rock faces. This simplicity of objective is strong enough to carry the game across 6 chapters with a roughly 4-hour completion time according to HowLongToBeat.com stats for just the main story. What I'm saying is that it's a short game, which doesn't detract from what I was talking about earlier. When you approach a rock face, you can pull one of the triggers to immediately latch onto the rock surface and hold onto either of them to keep hanging. You can then alternate between the two and a direction on the left stick to find a new handhold and continue climbing. All of what I mentioned still rings true. You get more and more mechanics that layer on top of the basic climbing. Stamina management, longer routes, managing your limited supply of pinots, jumping, double jumping, using your rope as a zipline for increased ascension and descension speed, and more. But then things change for the more interesting. Towards the end of Chapter 2, you're introduced to all of the major mechanics, which also includes your little blue buddy emitting a light that causes plants to grow, and then Jusant starts throwing challenges at you where you need to use all of these abilities to overcome its platforming challenges. From Chapter 3 and the rest of the game onward, the environments themselves present unique challenges on top of that too. A good example of that would actually be in Chapter 3, where the sun becomes more harsh. This makes it so that you have to contend with the climbable plants dying off much faster, but your stamina also draining way quicker as well. These environmental challenges make for a more considered approach to Jusant's gameplay, and I'm here for it. It showcases that, while it's still going for a more meditative experience through its climbing, it's not afraid to throw some complications your way. And meditative is exactly what I'm aiming for here. I usually found myself getting into a trance while playing, and it led to me burning through a half hour when I thought I was only playing for 5 minutes. Not many games can do that for me. I also want to talk about the music here for a quick second. It doesn't show up much in Jusant, mainly for the more marquee moments of the game, but all of it is excellent. It's got a more ambient vibe to it that swells upwards. I see what I did there. But for the most part, sticks with adding a more quiet quality to it. I would put this on if I needed to chill out. Jusant doesn't stay long, but it makes the most of its time. It's an engaging puzzle platformer that does what it needs to and makes you feel calm while doing it. It served as something of an eye in the massive storm that has been the release season this year, and I deeply appreciate it for that merit alone. I highly recommend it, especially if you have Game Pass. You got no excuse. And that will be it for this week's video. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. I've really helped out the channel, and I deeply appreciate it. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.